Deck building games are fun, but what if your cards came with existential dread and mind-blowing twists? Inscryption delivered all of this when it launched. But is it still worth it in 2025? Let's break down what made this game unforgettable and why it still might belong on your playlist. It's a roguelike with that just one more run vibe, only this time you might be dealing with some eldritch horrors and brain-melting puzzles along the way. It starts out innocent enough. You're just a guy in a cabin in the middle of nowhere playing a card game for your life. Totally normal, but don't let the first few minutes fool you. This game has more twists than a pretzel factory on a roller coaster. As you work your way through the deck building roguelike elements, stacking cards, making combos and sacrificing a creature to summon a powerful beast, you'll suddenly find yourself trapped in an escape room of sorts, solving puzzles in the cabin. And let's talk about the psychological horror, because this game isn't just about card shuffling, it gets inside your head, makes you question what's real, what's a game mechanic, and what's about to tear your soul apart. The narrative is pretty central in this game. One minute you might be crafting the perfect deck with a bizarre assortment of creatures, and the next moment you're unearthing a deep, dark mystery that turns your expectations upside down. Like you're piecing together a sinister plot that's far more intricate and far more disturbing than you ever imagined. And soon the lines blur, and you realize you're part of something much larger, stranger and way more dangerous. Let's talk about the gameplay. At its core, Inscryption is a deck builder. Every decision that you make with your deck feels meaningful, because the game is constantly pushing you to adapt on the fly and think strategically. You're not just collecting cards, every creature you add to your deck or every item plays a part in the story. And every creature you sacrifice can alter the course of your fate. You know, let's talk about the sacrificing mechanic for a second. You know, sometimes it feels like you're playing with fire. You have to sacrifice weaker cards to power up the stronger ones, but this doesn't come without consequences. It's more like a moral decision. It's a way of balancing risk and reward. Do you take that powerful card and sacrifice it to a weaker one, knowing that you're weakening your deck in the process? Or do you try to hold on to everything, knowing that your survival might depend on that one extra strong card you refuse to sacrifice? The meta-narrative in Inscryption is one of the most exciting and unique features in the game. It doesn't just stick to one genre, it evolves as you play. In one moment you're deep into a deck building roguelike and the next you're navigating a psychological horror experience. Suddenly you're solving puzzles and breaking through layers of narrative in ways you didn't expect. This game consists of 3 general episodes, or acts as they call it, but I won't spoil more than that. This evolution of genre isn't just a gimmick. It's deeply tied into the bigger meta-narrative. This game introduces rule changes and meta-references that break through the fourth wall in the most clever ways. You'll find yourself questioning if the game is glitching, if the mechanics are malfunctioning, or if the rules of reality itself are being bent. The characters will start to acknowledge the player's role, and decisions you make earlier in the game may come back later to haunt you in unexpected ways, altering the very course of the story. As for playability, Inscryption thrives on it. In your first playthrough, you're caught up in the mystery of it all, learning the rules, deciphering the story, and navigating the twists and turns as they come. But when you finish, you realize that the experience isn't over. The game encourages you to revisit it, with new layers to uncover. Inscryption quickly gained a following, and for good reason. It's a game that defies expectations and breaks conventions, making it a symbol for indie innovation in gaming. In a landscape where mainstream titles often play it safe, Inscryption embraced the risk-taking in ways that set it apart from almost anything else out there. This is truly the kind of game that reminds you why indie games are so special, because they can afford to take chances, push boundaries and create something fresh and unpredictable. The visuals in Inscryption are a perfect blend of unsettling and nostalgic, with a deliberately retro aesthetic that's as charming as it is eerie. The hand-drawn art style feels timeless, with its dark, grimy cabin setting and grotesque creatures providing the perfect atmosphere for the psychological horror elements of the game. And the mixture of 2D art with 3D environment works really well for this game. But one unfortunate aspect of the game is that while the game as a whole is incredibly well crafted, there's a noticeable imbalance in the 3 episodes or acts as I called it. So the opening chapter is a masterclass in setting up intrigue and tension. It does such a great job of introducing the game's core concepts and the tone that it almost sets the bar too high for the rest of the game. Don't get me wrong, the subsequent acts are still strong and feature clever gameplay and story development. But to me, they don't quite capture the same level of intensity and engagement as the first chapter. The pacing in the later acts can feel a bit more drawn out, and while the story continues to evolve in interesting ways, it doesn't always hit the same emotional heights. There's a certain magic and surprise in the first act, and because of that, the following 2 acts feel like more of a follow-up than an equally exciting and new experience. Even with the slight imbalance, Inscryption remains a standout game, and luckily the ending is good as well. Normally I'm not really a fan of the psychological horror genre. I find it rather boring, but in my opinion Inscryption is an exception to the rule, and it's one of those games that kind of changed my perspective. I think it's the way it's integrated into a larger evolving story that keeps things fresh. So if there are other games releasing in this genre, I'll definitely check them out. So in conclusion, Inscryption is really a standout game that defies genre conventions, blending its deck building, roguelike mechanics and psychological horrors into an unforgettable experience. The graphics, the mechanics and the narrative all work together, making the game truly immersive. And while the first act is undoubtedly the highlight of the game, setting the bar incredibly high, the following sections still offer a compelling journey, even if they don't quite match the intensity of the initial experience. And sometimes you can get the game on Steam for only $8. So in my opinion, it's definitely worth buying in 2025. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, maybe you like my next one. And as always, don't forget to like, share, comment, donate, masturbate.